What's up, internet friends? Brian here. I've built something that's genuinely super sweet for RPGs. If you are into that sort of stuff, hang around. It's called Grimoire. It is a tool that really supercharges a game master's prep and play. It sparks your creativity while you write. It can catalyze and organize your prep when you're kind of filing everything away, and it'll also put everything at your fingertips for gameplay. It's super flexible and kind of scary helpful. I've been using it to prep a campaign of mine so far, codify some one-shots, and it's really, really cool. So if you're into that sort of thing, buckle up. And if you want to test on it, build on it, or help me get it out to the world, drop me a comment or a message, and let's kind of make some more games happen. So I'm going to turn off my camera, and we're just going to start talking about the tool here. So what is Grimoire? Grimoire is an integration for Claude Code, which can integrate into an Obsidian inbox to add some designed tools into your workflow for creating creative content for TTRPGs. Tabletop RPGs such as Dungeons and Dragons and Daggerheart are the two ones that I built in. And they're really, really fun, but require a lot of creative work. And if you're not a writer, if you're not a game designer, it's really cumbersome. So what I wanted to do is something that can help set up a system for GMs, specifically new GMs, give you a starting place and be able to take any kind of creative input that you are able to offer as a game master, as a nerd, and turn that into fun gameplay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some example output from this tool. I had like a silly little one-shot idea, and this helped me write it out into a complete set of usable notes for gameplay. And then I'm going to try and show a live demo of this doing it for another one-shot. So as I mentioned, we got two systems built in, Daggerheart and Dungeons and Dragons. So we'll demo each of those. So what I'm showing here is the output of a one-shot idea I had. I wanted to start from scratch, and my idea was to spoof pod racing from Star Wars. So we were going to use the campaign frame in Daggerheart called Colossus of the Drylands, which is a kind of western desert sort of vibe with these lumbering colossi, ancient kind of mechanical beings, and I want to do like a speed racer side quest in the outskirts of that area, the Drylands, and we're going to just basically rip off a whole Star Wars deal. So what I'm looking at right now is kind of a session map for my entire output, that is meant to be like the usable sort of documents for running the game. This is in fact a couple, sessions back, so this is basic. But the input that I put into this was here. It was just basically a brief idea. The party are all speeder racers heading out to Outer Rim, blah, blah, blah. A few ideas of what the scenes and kind of beats of this story would be. We got a social one that is the cantina. We have got a pod race itself and some sort of climactic battle or reveal at the end. And then I also put some notes. A friend of mine just spitballed with me some like flavors on the magic lore of this Colossus of the Drylands campaign frame. So this is the creative input I wanted to start with. Very, very basic. And I'll show you something that can make use of a lot more content, right? I have ingested 30 plus full pages of session notes from an entire campaign before, and it helped make sense of all this. So this is just kind of a basic scale. And what that was able to do was able to generate locations, handouts, balanced encounters. And again, this one shot that we're looking at is incredibly basic. So I'm going to show you what this looks like live and how these tools can really help your gameplay. So this was starting from just a little blurb of an idea and ended up with a playable one shot with everything from NPCs, stat blocks, adversaries, combats, magic rewards, location descriptions, read alouds, even prompts for art generation. So let's close out of this and I'll show you how this works. So the Claude skills that I've put together, this is just this is a brand new Obsidian vault. Obsidian is where I take my notes. On the right side, we have this plugin called Claudian, which is just an interface for Claude Code-like commands within your Obsidian notes. I will do a better setup video later probably, but for now I've kind of done the initial setup. So I just want to show what happens when I ingest all of my content. That is like my pre-written content of whatever kind of gameplay do I want. Is this my campaign prep, next few session ideas, all of my notes, or is this like my one jumbled Google Drive document from a one-shot I cobbled together when I was like a new GM? In this case, exactly that. I called this idea a family slaycation. I put it together for Dungeons & Dragons. It ran well enough. I ran it a few times, and it's pretty sweet. It's a fun little thing where you're in the Isle of Cancunum, and enjoying a vacation, slaying skeletons, and then there's a mystery when the captain goes missing, sort of thing. So this is everything. It has intro descriptions for new players. It's got intro to the characters where we meet each other's characters. We've got setting scenes, and then define secrets and clues, everything from a little shop, a drinking contest, a mystery with clues, and then some sort of climactic boss battle. This is all outputted here. It is linking to monsters, blah, blah, blah. But this is basically the bare minimum for someone to write their own content to run at a D&D table. You would need to print out minis and the like, but this is like what a fully enclosed prep notes could be. The first thing that I want to do is to ingest all of my content. And I've built all these skills. They all start with Grimoire. Grimoire is like, of course, like a book of, lore and info. So I'm going to do Grimoire ingest. And this document, I'm just going to put into my inbox as Markdown. We're working in Markdown in Obsidian. I'm just going to run Grimoire ingest, which is going to look at the inbox. Let it be known that we're using a haiku, which is a slower, or a more efficient, a little bit older model, meant to try and do like a pretty quick demo here. I'm going to actually turn it on to low effort. So what this is going to do is it is checking through my documents and making sure that my kind of Grimoire's folders are all set up for when we start generating handouts, when it starts asking questions. This tool, this ingest tool, is meant to catalyze from a user's input and is meant to ask questions to fill in any gaps in its own understanding. So for right now, it's asking me, hey, what content do I want to do? Or do I want, what content am I ingesting, and do I want to add this to a campaign or make it its own? So I'm just going to quickly answer these questions. If you just read whatever questions it asks based on your content, it will eventually go through these prompts. So 1, yes, check inbox. 2, input one-shot ideas. 3, this is a one-shot. A family slaycation. So, it is editing a file Claude MD, which tells us, parties, etc., system, what system it is, and it is now going to kind of classify our whole idea here. Classification, we've put it down here. I'm going to actually open up Claude. It says Daggerheart or 5e. I'm going to put 5e here because it didn't get that from here. A family slaycation, blah, blah, blah. This explains kind of the folders of how everything works, and everything looks good. So now that it has kind of set itself up, we're going to create the premise document, and we're going to propose the next session being the one-shot. I'm just going to remind it that it's a one-shot. Yes, proceed as a one-shot. As I mentioned, you can ingest a whole campaign. I ingested like 20 sessions worth of notes to get me kind of settled at where my campaign prep is for an actual real campaign I'm running. And it chewed through it and did these same operations. So it has now started to output content for me. So we're going to start and look in our kind of folders over here, campaign, a family slaycation, and now we have premise. Premise is its own document. Adventurers unwind on the tropical isle of Cancunum, battling skeleton hordes and relaxing between bouts until the vacation's final day, when a rescued pirate and ancient necromancer's vengeful wight threaten to turn their paradise into a beachhead for undead conquest, which is a summary of the premise of the one-shot. This is kind of a pitch to the GMs. Now, what has it done next? It has been starting to create scenes and locations based on my notes. This is the Isle of Cancunum, the town or port of Cancunum. The Black Shores, the White's Tower. These are locations that I've written in my document. It sets an opening scene. It took some read aloud text that I did. It tightened it up. It kind of sorted it. It summarizes NPCs and kind of defines for a GM how you would run this thing. There's a bit of a mystery. We've got likely encounters. We've got details for the encounters, which are just straight off of my notes, and general ideas of loots and rewards. This is just basically digesting and understanding the input content and organizing it in a way so that the tool itself can make use of it. So it says your one shot is ready to run. Now, what I want to do, normally what I could do is do individual commands to create content as I'm being inspired. I could just ask, what's next? And it might prompt me, hey, let's get some content like written down. I don't think it actually wrote to the there we go, slaycation, inbox, ingested, one-shot idea, slaycation. Okay, so that's organizing my old stuff. I'm gonna have to edit this video a little bit. I don't think it actually wrote yeah, so it was waiting for a prompt to save next session.md. Save next session. Cool. So I'm always like, I built it so that it will tell you kind of what's next as far as building out the content for you. So we had the premise, and it was like, hey, here's my idea for the session, what we're trying to do based on your notes. From that, we can start to build out adversaries. We can make stat blocks. We can build out appropriate magic items. We could build out environments, which is a Daggerheart term, but could be adapted to 5e, like we're doing here. Using skill checks and the like. There's some mechanics in here. We can do a bunch of manual operations, or if we want the easy button, there's a way to just say, hey, audit this, tell me what's missing, and then just build it out as you would suggest, and we can do stuff manually. So now it's wrote a different document. I made it very deliberate to not overwrite things unless it asks. Next session, a family slaycation. We got premise, we got locations, we got opening scenes, something to read, blah, 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 key NPCs, clues and discoveries, likely encounters, that sort of stuff. And it explains kind of the high level of how to run the one shot. This kind of intro idea is really for the high level understanding of how are we playing through this one shot. And then we're going to start making stat blocks. So we've got premise MD and next session MD laid out. And it's giving us some ideas of what we can do next. So we want to create a stat block for the white and other enemies, or maybe we want to build some sort of encounter. So what I'm going to do is pick another skill, Grimoire 5e, which will make appropriate stat blocks specifically for D&D 5th edition. Encounter for the mystery of finding the White Tower. So while this runs, if you haven't played Daggerheart, encounters are a very useful type of tool. They're basically stat block for a game loop. Is this a mystery? Is this a chase? Is this a social encounter with a merchant that's trying to swindle you. And it will lay out how you run that scene. Rolls, countdowns, sometimes a combat. So I wanted to port this idea that is from Daggerheart as a useful tool into 5e terminology. So how many players? We're going to just default to 4 players. And we want the... it is asking some clarifying... how do I want to run this scene? I want this to be a discovery scene. I'm just going to say run it. It very conversationally will kind of like walk us through the steps that I've defined in these tools, because it wants to create stat blocks for this. Cool. So now we've got an environment. We've got 3 different kind of environment stat blocks in D&D 5e terms. Really, shorthanded to where are the different parts of this scene of the mystery. We're going to find where is the missing captain of the boat. How can this be uncovered? This is like a mystery. So we've got skeleton footprints. If they go onto the ship, they discover skeleton footprints. The bone-handled knife could be loot from a sort of this killing skeletons, and this bone-handled knife could point to the necromancer Athalas the Hateful, who was supposedly thought to be long dead. Bimbus, adrift. First mate Bimbus is a character on the ship who got knocked out as the captain was taken. He's a jolly little guy, and maybe he'll have some clues. The Darkening, there could be there's this location called the Black Shores, and this kind of explains how they could discover the mystery if they were to go there. So this is the proposed way to run the mystery section of this campaign, of this one shot, that is. So it should say, yes, to run this scene, I have to, I need to file this away under, as an environment. So if I go here, there should be, writing somewhere. It'll be tagged as an environment, and then when I create my kind of heads-up display for the game, I will be able to list all of the like active environments that I might need to click between. This video is getting a little bit longer than I planned. If you're here for it, I appreciate you. There's just a lot to show, and it's very, very cool. And this is just the demo, not even necessarily fully how it works inside. So it wrote a family slaycation scene called The Black Shores Calling, which is a scene. I guess it avoided calling it an environment, but this is basically how to run this part of the game, this mystery part, what clues you could find, the different places you can look. As I ask. So that was basically one type of prompt. Let's do a different example. Let's do Grimoire 5e. Adversary. The White. Embodying the never dying hate of Athalas the Terrible. And in fact, let's go, we're going to do this. So like I was going to make an actual adversary, but what I'm going to do is Grimoire batch, which will allow me to chain a bunch of, a bunch of commands together to make multiple pieces of content that are related. So I want to make the White its minions in the tower and the combat encounter of the tower. So this is basically the third act, and I'm trying to get it to batch create the appropriate content for this White's tower. I've got some notes. On the first floor, there's a weird bench doing necromancer stuff. There's a chandelier that screams with you know, the souls of people lost on the island. There's some clues about what Athelas is up to, and at the very top is Athelas and Captain Morgan, who you have to save. And so I have that already in my notes that it ingested, and now it's just going to kind of fill in the gaps and make like, okay, I need an encounter. Let's make an encounter with these sort of things. So these are the compiled plans. It's going to make the monsters, which is the white. Gives it a CR for Dungeons and Dragons 5e. Its roll. The roll is also kind of carried over from Daggerheart stuff. And then we have the Grimoire encounter, and making sure this is all 5e. So we have the option to output mode split or have it all put in one. Output mode merged. Go ahead. So I'm going to see if it'll output it in one singular file so that I can show it all at once. But you have the option to generate all of the individual files, like this is the white stat block, this is the skeleton's stat block, this is a ghoul's stat block, and it will either pull from an SRD or adapt from an example on the SRD, trying to keep it all copyright friendly. So let's see how long it's taking. It's doing all of it. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've got this on haiku low effort, so like I've been training this on higher models and it's always way slower, but this seems to be running good in like poor examples. Cool. Aarakocra Ghoul, it's giving outputs like in a nice table. It's giving like the full stat blocks. It's giving a tower combat encounter that is balancing all of the beings in the tower and the different floors. It's creating lair actions, passive actions, environmental hazards, because there was a mention of a trap from my notes, which I wrote like the very short version. All stages complete. So it is saying a single document. This is all really, really nice, but I sometimes have been finding myself saying, hey, reduce this by 50%. And it'll just kind of concisify that for me. But you can see it's already writing the scene as campaigns, family vacation as a single consolidated packet. So it's going to write it to this folder, the campaign. Tower combat packet. So I kind of have to touch up where it's writing these sort of things. There could be world stuff, items being individually filed, but I think this is for this one scene. This is like the combat packet, and this has everything on there. It might even have rewards. It's got rewards. You got Captain Morgan's gratitude, experience. It does that for you. And you got Athelas's dagger, which is just so crazy. I would never have thought of that. See canon folder for the full note. It does not have the full note. So that's something missing. But whenever it messes up like this, you can always just ask it. So it's going to suggest some ideas. So let's do generate Athelas's dagger. And then after this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show something a little bit more automatic. What we're going to do is give us ourselves an audit, which is going to check, do I have enough content to run a session of D&D? Whether it be this one shot or at least a session of whatever your game is for a campaign type setting. So we are going to do Athelas's dagger because I copied it wrong. Bam. And I could, go ahead and make an entire horde of rewards for that. Cool. Generate Athelas's dagger. It's got the properties. And then I'm going to just to demonstrate this, make more concise by 50% and file it away. So I'm just telling it, yeah, cut it down. Like, it likes to really go crazy and demonstrate, you know, some interesting stuff, giving all these notes. But really, if I just want like a little printable or pastable blurb about Athalaz's dagger to keep it really, really quick going in the game, I can just do that. Cool. That's all filed away. Now what we're going to do is do Grimoire. I'll briefly actually go through, briefly describe the Grimoire tools. Let's just have it do that for us in one sentence, because I want to show like the other stuff that we're going to have. Grimoire ingest, we saw Grimoire init is how you set up your vault structure. Grimoire pitch can generate divergent ideas, meaning if I want to do Grimoire pitch 3 sweet combat ideas for this one shot, I can have it pitch me just the text from a game design perspective of describing how could you do 3 different things, keeping the context in mind, keeping GM good practices in mind. Black Sands ambush, the altar of screams in the tower, or the White's escape, a variant on the finale. So these are just pitches. I can funnel that into the commands to make it a stat block, which is really, really cool. You can also do Grimoire expand, which is another way to like expand on specific ideas. Like if you like a certain idea, let's follow that thread and expand. Grimoire 5e makes 5e stat blocks. Grimoire Daggerheart makes Daggerheart stat blocks. Grimoire Encounter can make 5e or Daggerheart fully balanced encounters for each system. It's been doing pretty freaking good, which is why this stuff is scary. I know that there's not necessarily the most confidence in doing math with these models, but it has the ability to like make scripts that will do the math in a very repeatable way, and so it's getting pretty consistent. Grimoire build, it will build things that the audit suggests. Scout can read your current campaign state, and it'll kind of give hints of what you can look ahead to do, kind of catalyze that creative juice in a GM. Even if you're like scatterbrained, don't know where to go next, this will give you that kind of heading, that direction. Grimoire Codify will solidify all the content into like formatted stat blocks that'll have all these properties saved. These things are on deck, meaning they're going to be available on your heads up display, easily accessible. They're going to show up in your list of available scenes and stat blocks. And then this Grimoire HUD is something that we're probably going to show next after the audit. And that basically creates nice formatted database lists of the content, so you have it within a couple clicks. So what's next? We're going to do Grimoire audit. Which I can also give some more prompt after it, making sure I have everything needed, stat blocks, environments, locations, NPCs, loot, secrets, and gameplay notes to run the session. So it will go and compare this to a well-recognized GM prep format. This is called the Lazy Dungeon Master template. Shout out to Mike Shea, Sly Flourish. Mike Shea is the author. Sly Flourish is the account. Has a really great kind of template for what he says is lazy dungeon masters, but I think it's a kind of minimalist prep to enable creativity and improvisation. But it basically says, hey, you're going to probably want like 5 to 10 NPCs, 10 to 20 secrets, what is going to happen, info about the world, things that can catch a player's attention, things that can reveal info. You need like 3 to 4 to 5 combats. You need, however many locations, descriptions of them, and you need magic reward items. So he gives you a punch list, and this skill that just completed kind of checked through that. So it went to go see, hey, we've got all these scenes ready. We're missing locations as complete world notes. We're missing NPC notes, and we've got basically everything else. We got treasure. here are the gaps of details. We can run all these specific details, and it can make individual suggestions. So if I want to start piling up feedback, blah, 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 do this, blah, 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 do this, blah, 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 do this, it should be able to batch a bunch of those. But what I want to do is show, like, I've ran this one shot with just my Google Doc just fine. So I want to just kind of do everything. So whatever it thinks we need, let's just fill in the gaps with like nothing too out there, just good, wallpaper for my campaign that's already written, or for my one shot that's already written. So with audit done, I'm going to do Grimoire build. Nope. Build. Nope. Build. Thank you. It keeps suggesting that one. Now what this is going to do is it's basically going to just roll with the recommendations it just gave me with the audit step. And now it's asking me, do I want to confirm for each one? I'm just going to say no. Don't confirm. Just run with it, and it should build out everything for me. And it'll probably say, hey, we've got items, locations written with like read alouds, and probably a kind of heads up display, that'll probably be the next step, is to get the heads up display, which is kind of what you're going to be looking at while running the session. So it wrote Isle of Cancunum.md in here, which comes with beautiful, it's the like kind of top level description, a resort destination. It's got white sand beaches, palm trees, and leisure. That's the vibe. It's got the town. It's got the beach, and some descriptions and like a secret thread read aloud, that sort of thing. Sometimes it'll also give a prompt to for potential image generation or art creation. The Black Shores, it explains that. Blah, 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 details, threads that can be picked up here, hazards, which is some great inspiration if you want to improvise some stuff. We got the White's Tower. So it is building out literally everything that we need. We're looking about, there's combat. It is filling in NPCs. We've got NPCs here. Captain Morgan Blackbraid, appearance, personality, motivation, secrets. And a lot of this is stuff I've already written, but it is filling in those gaps and just making it available and kind of organized. And it's meant to lean into the user input, most of all. So this is basically created all the content as individual notes. Now I want to be, ready to run this. Grimoire HUD, which is creating the heads up display for what am I doing in this session. You can probably run it between this next session document and, the different scenes here. That's the combat page. We've got individual NPCs, and you probably got enough to do that here. But what this HUD is going to do is create a single page and organize our content by its properties so that everything is on deck and available and ready. So we're going to do, yes, it's saying, yes, I'm going to create your heads up display and organize the databases so that we can see everything that is on deck. For a campaign, you might have a lot of notes. The things that are on deck are going to show up in your heads up display. Blah, blah, blah. Now creating 5 deck views and index files. Again, we're using the kind of lowest effort things. I would normally use a higher effort, better model for creating your heads up display, because it's doing like creating the bases and stuff, databases. So this is normally where we would keep all the databases. I don't think everything here is on deck, because that's what this database is for. It's really meant to read the properties of these items. So put all objects on deck and make sure the bases are populated. So I'm just going to ask it to run a quick thing, and it will just adjust the properties of each of these little objects so that when I go to on deck NPCs, for a one shot, everything is on deck because we're using everything. But it should show up here. But at the very top, we've got our opening scene, the brief notes about the key NPCs, allies, you know, what's going to happen in the order, clues and discoveries, what you can like look into. And, you know, once you've read through the next session, the premise, which is like what you would read ahead of time, this is like your quick notes for actually running the session. Cool. So it's suggesting some changes. We're going to add yes to all these. Heads up display views will populate them, and it's going to individually update. You can see as it's updating those, this list is showing all the NPCs that have the on deck property checked. And it's going to go through that with like the locations. So I have easy access to all the locations. And you get the idea. Is like this whole point is meant to organize the stuff that you have existing. So even if you don't want any of the generative stuff, this heads-up display is insanely helpful because it knows how to organize and mass write your files. It hasn't done any like really egregious hallucinating in, you know, overwriting stuff. But you really get the idea. I went from, what did we ingest in this inbox? This was our one-shot idea. It was a full page document. It had some, you know, descriptions, NPCs, all my stuff. All the stuff for this lazy dungeon master kind of execution of the one-shot in brief, unorganized notes, missing stat blocks, missing, like, you know, I'd kind of have to fill in a lot of the gaps. I would have to invent read-alouds for each description. I would have to kind of feel my way of when the scenes change. There wasn't like a firm like environment or anything. But it has expanded on all these. It has pointed out where I'm lacking, and it has just made a better game for me to run. So now I have this heads-up display. Let's go back to that, which is where I'm going to start when I am running the game. I feel like this has been a really long demo. I'm really excited for this. Let's go ahead and put that camera back. Thank you guys for taking a look at this Grimoire tool. It's super powerful. I'm really excited. I want to try and build this out for people to be able to use. So message me, comment, whatever. Thank you and peace out.